everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today we are talking about the movie Lightyear. Go ahead, sit down, Richard. Good job. So this is going to be a spoiler review. So if you are concerned about spoilers, I would suggest you go and watch the movie first before you watch this review. Lightyear is the movie based on Buzz Lightyear, the character from Toy Story. So basically, this movie actually says at the beginning, this is what the toy from the Toy Story movies, this is the movie that toy is based on. So basically, it covers Buzz Lightyear as a captain of Star Command, and he and his crew get lost or stranded on a planet where he's trying to sort of figure out a way to create hyperspeed to get them back home. So as far as what I liked about the movie, overall, I thought the cast was really good. I liked Chris Evans as Buzz Lightyear, replacing Tim Allen, who played him in the Toy Story movies. Keke Palmer was good. Taika Waititi, always good. I liked him in this. And James Brolin as well, I thought was really good. Overall, the animation in this movie is really good. This is probably some of the best animation I've seen in a Pixar movie. Obviously, there's a very stylized look to the characters, but as far as like the planes and the spacecraft and all that, it looked great. It looks basically like almost like a real movie. I think the story and the themes to this are actually pretty interesting, and really sort of the idea that this guy, he's stuck on this planet and he's trying to help get everybody off of it. And every trip he takes to try to sort of do this takes 4 years. 4 years pass. So then basically the world keeps moving, or his friends keep moving, and he is sort of stuck continually going through the future. So kind of an interesting concept, and one that I've sort of seen in sci-fi before, but it, would totally be alongside like a Robert Heinlein novel or somebody like that, Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury, any of the classic kind of sci-fi things. I can definitely see this being a story, and I'm sure there probably is a story that I'm not familiar with that is very similar to that. Overall, there's some changes and sort of a twist to the movie. Again, this is a spoiler review, but if you remember in, I think, Toy Story 2 or Toy Story 1, one of the Toy Stories, they mentioned that Zurg, Evil Emperor Zurg, is actually Buzz Lightyear's father, which is sort of a nod to the movie Star Wars. In this movie, they changed that, and they actually make Evil Emperor Zurg Buzz Lightyear from the future. He's a Buzz Lightyear who's been continually going into the future and has managed to go into the past to find, this iteration of Buzz. So I actually thought that was kind of an interesting idea. I think it might upset some people, but as I'm watching the movie, I'm sort of going, how are they going to make it make sense that that's his dad? If they did, it would be kind of a cop-out because they haven't showed or talked about his dad at all. Well, they just completely changed it. So I'm sure that might upset some people. Didn't really upset me, though. I actually thought it was fine. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. There's this pen joke going on with Taika Waititi's character where he's got a little pen in his pocket. He keeps pulling out, of course, after the 3rd or 4th time that he's like, oh, I've got a pen. Anyone need a pen? That they're obviously going to use the pen for something. It's going to pay it. And it does, and it pays off. It's fine. It's, again, maybe a little obvious. Maybe they overdid it a little bit, but I always like a joke like that. And Taika Waititi is just so funny. I mean, I prefer him as a writer and director as opposed to an actor, but he's good as an actor as well. There's also this scene with Isiah, the character played by Keke Palmer, who is above me on this side, where she's afraid of space, which is kind of an interesting concept. It is something that is a real fear that people have, but not one that most people really have to deal with or realize in everyday life. So I can definitely imagine in the future there being a lot of people afraid of space. And sort of the scene where she has to sort of confront that fear and drift across into the other side of the spaceship or whatever was a really good, compelling scene. I actually really liked it a lot. As far as what I disliked about the movie, this movie did the same thing that Top Gun did, where they had this little opening spiel with the actors where like Chris Evans comes on and goes, hey, I'm Chris Evans. Thanks for watching my movie. And they did the same thing with Top Gun, and I hate it. I hate this. I kind of get it with an animated movie because you don't see the actors' faces as much, so it's kind of cool. Like, I may not have realized that was even Keke Palmer in the movie if they wouldn't have showed her at the beginning. But yeah, I'm really hoping this isn't a trend of actors coming on before the movie to thank us for watching it or whatever. Like, I don't like that. It's stupid. Like, it's the equivalent of like clapping when a movie ends, which people have been doing lately. Don't clap when a movie ends. What are you doing? Nobody can hear that. That's for you. That's not for them. Stop it. The first 20 to 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes of this movie is actually kind of slow and a little boring. the movie overall is just a little too long. It's about an hour and 45 minutes, I think, which is sort of short by modern standards, but even for an animated movie, it's a little on the long side, I think. And I feel like it could have been shorter. They didn't need as much there. The planet that they landed on and then are stuck on for pretty much the entire movie is kind of a boring planet. There's not much going on. There's these like vines that kind of grab Buzz Lightyear every once in a while, kind of a funny joke. But other than that, it's kind of just like a barren kind of rocky planet. There are some trees and stuff, but for the most part, it's just not a very visually engaging kind of planet. And I realize that that's probably more likely. Most of the planets that have the correct gravity and everything and oxygen for people probably aren't going to be, they're probably going to be very rocky. That makes sense. But if you can create a planet in this sort of world and do anything you want, why wouldn't you make this sort of lush, interesting sort of thing with all sorts of crazy plant life and animals and colors and everything else? Instead, they just went with this very plain, rocky, barren kind of gray, dark sort of landscape that is not very visually engaging. I didn't love the cat voice. I like the character of the cat. I just think the cat was probably the funniest character in the movie and one of the most interesting characters in the movie. It's voiced by a guy named Peter Sohn, who has done some other voice work for Pixar, but is mostly an animator, I think. So I think with him, and as soon as I heard it, as I'm trying to go, I don't recognize this voice. I assumed it was sort of like an Andrew Stanton thing. Who Andrew Stanton directed Finding Nemo, and he plays like the turtle dudes with like the kind of stoner voice, and he does a great voice. He's actually one of my favorite voices in the movie. And so I feel like they were kind of doing the same thing here with Peter Sohn, who, like I said, mostly does animation, but actually has more voice credits than he has animation credits. But he's an animator for Pixar, and so they chose him to do this. He's fine. It's not a bad voice. His delivery is fine. But I guess I wanted someone who I recognized. I would have expected to see somebody like, I don't know, like a David Spade or somebody like that in that role, maybe even like Alan Tudyk or something. But yeah, and I mean, it's fine. We don't need a famous actor or anything like that. But I don't know. I guess I would have just liked a little bit more of a distinctive voice. Also, I think an issue I had with the movie is they sort of play up the friendship between Buzz and I don't remember the other character's name, but Keke's grandma. I'm sorry, Izzy's grandmother. They sort of play up the relationship or the friendship between the two of them, and it's fine. It's somewhat believable as far as friendships go. But that's like the only friend that he has. They don't show him interacting with anybody else or any other friends. So it's just, I guess it would have been odd if he had like a romantic interest or a girlfriend or a child or something. It would have been hard to understand why he would be willing to go into space like that. But yeah, I guess it's just, who is he fighting for? His one friend who is, eventually gets old and dies. I don't know. So other than that, the movie was directed by Angus MacLane. This is his first movie, I think, directing. He co-directed Finding Dory and had worked on some shorts and some other stuff, mostly in the Toy Story universe, I think. Written by him, as well as Matthew Aldrich and Jason Headley. Matthew Aldrich wrote Coco, and Jason Headley wrote Onward. So all kind of Disney Pixar vets who are experienced with this. I will say, so like I said at the very beginning of the movie, it says that this is the movie that Andy's toy was based on from the Toy Story films. Okay, that's fine. So I guess it did make me think that maybe in the Toy Story universe, this movie is not supposed to be animated because they're all animated. So this is more the equivalent of a live action movie in their universe, maybe. And that would kind of make some sense to me because in a lot of ways, I think an issue I have with this movie is that it doesn't really feel like it's for kids. It feels like it's more for teenagers or maybe even adults. But as far as like kids movies go, it doesn't have that similar kid thing. So I find it hard to understand why Andy would like this movie so much as a kid. I suppose it is possible. I liked some movies as a kid that I've watched now as an adult and found them kind of boring and was surprised that I liked them. So I guess if you like the character enough, it makes sense. I do think it's interesting they sort of disregarded the entire TV cartoon that they had, Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. It wasn't a show that I necessarily watched a lot. I was maybe a little too old for it, but they had the whole crew that they introduced there with Mira and XR and Booster, who were somewhat popular and I think pretty good character designs. And I was a little disappointed that they didn't put them in this movie. I'm not sure why they decided not to. Like I said, it does really feel like it's more for older kids. I feel like this is the kind of movie that If I were 13 or 14, I would probably think it was really cool and interesting and had a kind of an interesting sort of theme and idea behind it. But, if I were 6 or 7, I don't know if I'd like it as much. I know there was a family with kids sitting next to me, and their youngest kid seemed to be quite bored during the entire movie. I was running around and doing anything but watching the movie. And honestly, I couldn't really blame him much because the movie wasn't that interesting, at least not for kids, I don't think. There is a same-sex couple, so I can never. Izzy's grandmother is a lesbian and has a lesbian relationship with another woman there. Didn't bother me. Apparently, there's a kiss. I honestly it didn't register that there was a same-sex kiss because I don't care. It's not a big deal. But apparently, it is a big deal for some people. This movie was banned in a lot of Muslim countries and most of the Middle East, and other countries like. Indonesia, I think, and other sort of Muslim countries outside of the Middle East. So yeah, they don't like that kind of stuff. Some people are upset about it. There was some sort of review bombing because of it, I think. Didn't bother me. I don't really care. I do know some people sort of mentioned that Disney does it with women, but not with men so much because maybe in our society it's more acceptable for there to be lesbians than gay couples. Again, I don't really think it's a big deal, especially in the future. It makes sense. Maybe part of me thought, oh wait, how did they have a kid if they're both women? But in vitro fertilization, donor, and there's a number of options. They didn't need to explain any of that. So yeah, that's fine. That's cool. Good for them. I will say one thing that occurred to me a lot, much like that sort of intro thing with Chris Evans and Keke Palmer introducing it, this movie reminded me a lot of Top Gun Maverick. Sort of the same kind of themes, which is like this older, kind of more experienced guy who's kind of a superstar, has to sort of learn to work with others and that learn that he can't do it all on his own. This movie actually had a more clear character arc than Maverick did, and this actually went more the way I expected Maverick to go, which was sort of like he has to learn, to work with others, and it's not all about him. And yeah, Maverick didn't really explain that very well. That being said, I actually like Maverick better than I like this movie. I think Maverick had really cool aerial action kind of combat fighting scenes, and a lot of stuff this movie didn't have. So maybe that's why. The movie does have a $200 million budget, which is pretty high budget. I'm sure it'll probably make the money back, but I was surprised to see for an animated movie how high the budget is. That being said, it does look great, so that does make sense. So I think for this movie overall, it does seem like the kind of thing where I really think if it were just a regular sci-fi movie, or if it were, say, a book that I read, I would actually kind of really like the story. The idea that this guy is stuck on this planet, it's his fault, he caused it, and now every time he tries to get off the planet, he loses 4 years of his life, basically. It's a really cool, interesting, compelling concept. Everyone he knows kind of dies, and his only companion really is this cat. But I think for a kid's movie, I just don't know how engaging it is, really, or especially as a Buzz Lightyear movie. I think in some ways I would have rather just had like Buzz Lightyear Star Command than what this was. So for me, I'm going to say it's kind of an average movie, honestly. There's some good stuff, there's some bad stuff. They do eventually reveal, I said this before, that Zurg is Buzz in the future, and then they have this sort of thing between Buzz deciding, oh, should I try to go back and change things, but if I do, then Izzy will never be born. And then of course the other Buzz is like, who's Izzy, because he never met her. So interesting, compelling kind of idea, but overall I think the execution could have been better, and I think it could have been a little more engaging for kids. So for me, my score is going to be a 7 out of 10. It's just an average, right down the middle kind of movie. But if you saw it, let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night, and I will see you here again next week.